Let's talk the elephant in the room, racism. The reason why we're discussing this is because of a few comments I've received over the past couple of years. And I had a poll in my community to see if I should even speak on the elephant in the room. And you guys have voted and on the side of me speaking on racism. Let me show you a few things. Here is a very valuable card of one of my heroes, the Brown Bomber Joe Louis. And here is another valuable card of another one of my heroes, Jack Dempsey. Here's a book called Unbeaten. It's about Rocky Marciano and his life. And here's a book about Smoking Joe Frazier, about his life. Here's a book called Undisputed Truth by Iron Mike Tyson, about his life. Here's a book by Tyson Gypsy King Fury, about his life. Here's a book from Bruce Lee, his words, a lot of pages. It's about his thoughts, things he said, things he's jotted down. Okay? Here's a book by Ronda Rousey, white woman. Read her book too. I read books about white men, black men, Asian men, white women. And I do this because not only do I want to be a great boxing analyst and contribute to the sport the best way I can, okay? Also, I do this because I want to be a greater human being each day than I was the day before. And that takes understanding, right? Understanding of different people, understanding of different cultures, raising that level of knowledge. And I want to be a better human, not just for myself and how I go about my life and treat people, but also for my family and for my children, and most importantly, my legacy, because we're only on earth for a certain period of time. Hopefully I have the type of impact that lasts forever. And I'm only saying this to let you guys know my mission statement and why I go about my channel the way I do, okay? Just to let you know directly. Now, after this, you can make whatever assumptions you want to make, but at least you heard from me why I actually do it. You can make up whatever reason you want after this. That's on you. That's your prerogative. But let's discuss the elephant in the room, which is racism. Now, I've had many people, different types of fans call me different names depending on the way I've criticized their fighter. Okay, so I've had Pacquiao fans say that I'm only criticizing Manny Pacquiao because I'm an American black man. I've had just yesterday when I was speaking on Ryan Garcia being exposed for keeping his chin in the air, I've actually had Latinos in the comments saying that I hate Mexican people. I've had Tank Davis fans say that I hate all black fighters. And I've had Lomachenko fans recently say, of course, I'm criticizing Lomachenko because I'm a black man, okay? And he's not a black fighter. And I've had Wilder fans call me a coon for criticizing Deontay Wilder. So let's talk about racism. Here's a little secret about racism. Actually, I'm going to tell you a few secrets about racism. One of the things racism is definitely is a business, which is why what you see hit the media is a race, one race against the other race. You see that all the time. It's a business. It's a big business, which is why it's fed so often, and we're falling for it. Now, look, I can only speak as a black man in front of you, which I am. I am a black man who has lived the black experience. I haven't lived the white experience or Chinese or Japanese experience or, Mexican experience. I've only lived the black experience. So I'm going to speak to you as a black man with the black experience. One of the biggest tricks actually played on my culture, I believe, not the biggest, one of the biggest, is that black people cannot be racist because we don't have the power to be racist. We have to talk about that. It's a psychological masterpiece. It's a beautiful thing. What happened there, and I'm speaking to my black people, someone has convinced you that you have the privilege to be racist because you're powerless. Think about it. Think about the person who convinced you of that. The most important thing that they really convinced you of is that you're powerless. And I'm here to sit right in front of you, my black people, and say, you have as much power, grace, beauty, strength, courage as any other race in the world. You're not powerless. You have power. We have demonstrated our power time and time again through world history. Forget just U.S. history. We've definitely done it. U.S. history. I'm talking about inventing things. I'm talking about the civil rights movement. I'm talking about the Black Lives Matter idea. I'm not speaking of the organization so much, but of the idea that Black Lives Matter also. I'm talking about going from being hung and the last word you hear is the N-word to now, if someone whispers the N-word, their lives are over. You see what I'm saying? We have power. Now, let me tell you something else about racism. Racism is just a projection of an asshole's insecurity. That's all it is. It's a projection of an asshole's insecurity. It's a weakness. It's totally a weakness. Let's talk about boxing, for example. This is a boxing channel. Let's use a few examples when it comes to boxing. Now, at the beginning of this video, I showed you guys a picture of Jack Dempsey, okay? This is extremely important. I remember a time in the 80s, in the 90s, where a white heavyweight champion was probably the rarest thing in all of sports. You couldn't buy a white heavyweight champion. And because of that, I lived an era where there were a lot of white people who were insecure. And as black people, we thought there would never be a white heavyweight champion. I remember that. Like, how could that be? How could that be possible? And because of the insecurity, the business of racism reared its head multiple times. All you need to do is look at Larry Holmes versus Cooney. Look at Tommy the Duke Morrison, how hyped he was. I mean, he was a very fantastic heavyweight, but he was really blown up because racism is a business, most definitely. Now, fast forward, to now, you had the Klitschko's just reigning forever. And though they're not white American men, they are white men. So it's funny, the flip has happened. I began to exist in an era where, as black people, we became a bit insecure. And then we had Deontay Wilder. And we all rallied behind Deontay Wilder, which is why, if you're wondering why Deontay Wilder is seen as a representation of black life in the boxing world. Not for everyone, but for those who have that insecurity, Deontay Wilder means so much. Which is why when I criticized Deontay Wilder, saying, hey, he lost to Tyson Fury because he lost, why there was such a split. You had other races say, obviously, he lost just because he lost. They came from a place of confidence. You had Klitschko been reigning forever. You haven't really seen a black heavyweight other than Anthony Joshua, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The confidence was there. The insecurities were here. So when I said those words, you had black men say, how can you dare say that? They couldn't understand where I was coming from. You must be a coon, ShowBizz. Must be. And I'm here to tell you, if you don't know, I'm not a coon. I am a confident, secure black man. Deontay Wilder's reign as a champion doesn't define me as a black man, nor does it define our black culture. I'm going to tell you what defines our black culture more when it comes to Deontay Wilder. Who he is as a father, who he is as a husband, who he is as a son, who he is as a brother, who he is as a friend. Deontay Wilder is a beautiful human being from my understanding. Anyone who speaks about Deontay Wilder as far as meeting him said that he's a loving guy, a generous guy, a great father. He's a homebody and he's always around his family. That defines him as a black man to me more so than being a boxer. So I can criticize him as the type of punches he throw. That's nothing to me. That doesn't hurt my feelings. It doesn't make me more insecure as a black man. But I'm going to tell you this. I will celebrate Deontay Wilder as a father. Now, here's a little something about myself. I know I've seen comments where people say, hey, ShowBizz, you don't even look like a guy who grew up in a hood or anything like that. So let me just express a little bit of who I am, which being black isn't defined by being in the projects. Okay, that's not the definition of black. But I do want to tell you guys a little bit of a story, of who I am and my background, because I think that's important, especially to my black people. I share the story of many of you. My father passed away before I was born. So I grew up in a single parent household, just my mother. And I had two brothers who grew up with me. So she was taking care of three boys. And we grew up in the subsidized housing in the Chicago area. And I didn't leave that situation, being in the projects until I went away to college. I all the way up to almost being an adult in my late teenage years, I grew up there. So I've lived that experience for sure. The runnings with the cops, the whole thing. Look, I remember being grabbed by a police officer, and that police officer telling me that I was a criminal by the name of Nick. Some guy, he didn't even say his last name. He said, or is your name Nick? I'm like, no. He said, yeah, you're Nick. He was telling me who I was. He was a white cop telling me who I was and was taking me to his vehicle. Now, the only thing that stopped it from happening, stopped me from actually going to jail, he was about to cuff me and everything, telling me who I was a white guy where I worked. I was standing outside of the bowling alley in which I worked. I was a teenager. I was 17 years old. A white coworker came out and he said, hey, yo, and said my name. He said, hey, what are you doing with him? He's no criminal. He works here. The cop let me go. But the funny thing is his partner was a black guy. And I remember at 17 years old, I said audibly to both of them. I pointed at the white cop. I said, you're racist. And I pointed at the brother and I said, you're a coon. I'll never forget that. I was on my way to college that summer. I have already been accepted to college. And like I said, I was 17. Now, I could have graduated as a junior at 16. I had all the credits. I was already accepted to college. I could have went to college at 16. But my mother said, you know what? You may want to stay an extra year in high school because you don't want to speed up your high school years. These are your fun years. What she was actually saying was, you're too immature to be on your own right now. But I went on to college. I got good marks and I graduated. I went to graduate school. I got my MBA, got good marks, and I graduated. And after my MBA, I got a good job working for, a great company. I moved up the ladder in that company, becoming a manager. And then I became ShowBizz the adult and started my own business. And I'm not saying that is the only way to be successful. That is not the only way to do it. What I'm saying is studying raises the probability of getting good grades. Getting good grades raises the probability of getting into college. Earning your degree raises the probability of getting a good job. Getting a good job raises the probability of earning more money. Earning more money raises the probability of building your savings. Good money management raises your probability of having good credit. Good credit with a savings raises your probability of buying a house, buying a house with good credit and good savings raises your probability of getting a business loan. And getting a business loan raises your probability of being free and working for yourself. And I say all of those things. I told my story to let you know, my black people, that you are not powerless. You have power, as much power as anyone else. And what I learned myself in my journey, that there is racism. Oh yes, there's racism. But racism, as of right now, is extremely weak, and it doesn't stop you or me from doing anything we want to accomplish. Even the story that I told at the beginning with the white cop grabbing me as a young boy saying that I was a criminal, and all, with the black cop and the white guy who worked with me coming out and saying that, you know, he works here and all those things. What I didn't tell you is that my mother showed up. I called my mother showed up, and my mother spoke to the police officer. Now, my mother could have easily got that police officer fired, or at least close to. We could have taken it all the way through, but my mother used her gifts and her powers of words and communication, speaking to that cop, letting him know how terrible he was for even making that decision and grabbing an innocent guy, and could have possibly derailed my life forever. And what I'm saying is, no, I wouldn't have been thrown in jail, but he could have rotten my mind. He could have made my mind rotten, to where I feel that no matter how good I do or whatever I do, I will always be a criminal. That's what my mother expressed to that cop, and how much power that cop had. And then looking back at that, I realized that the black cop that was by the car, who I called a coon, he was a part of the system, feeling that he was powerless. And I also learned that my white coworker, who was an older man, he was like in the 60s, who ran out and said, he works here, he's no criminal, that guy was not an asshole, meaning he was a white guy that wasn't racist. Racism is the trait of the insecure. Racism is for the asshole. Racism is a weak trait for the weak ones. Now, I showed you guys a few books at the start of this video, but the book I couldn't show you guys was an audio book, a book that I heard online. Okay, I bought the audio version while I was driving. You know, you're listening to a book. And that book was about Tom Molyneux. Now, maybe you guys have heard me, you know, touch on this subject before, but Tom Molyneux, he was an ex-slave who fought his way into freedom. He was the first United States heavyweight champion. Tom Molyneux, look him up. Now, the thing that really struck me about his story was he fought his way to freedom, becoming the heavyweight champion of the States. And then he took a boat to the UK. And when he went to the UK, he went to the UK very brash, and he was walking down the streets, going to pubs, and he was calling out UK's heavyweight champion, who was Tom Cribb at the time. Tom Molyneux and Tom Cribb, they fought for the World Heavyweight Championship, but I'm not going to talk about that fight. What I'm going to dive into is his idea, his mentality. I'm speaking of Tom Molyneux. This is a guy who was a slave his entire life, but he went to the UK. Not only did he know in the UK they didn't practice slavery, but he also knew that he can go there with the mentality to call out the white heavyweight champion without fear. I'm not saying that there is no racism in the UK. What I'm saying is the UK seemed to have progressed a couple hundred years ahead of the States when it comes to race relations, which could be why Eddie Hearn's prize fighter is a Nigerian black man, Anthony A.J. Joshua, and also probably why many of us as black people kind of separate the experience of Deontay Wilder and the experience of Anthony A.J. Joshua. If any of you are wondering why Deontay Wilder has that, to this day, type of support, where Anthony A.J. Joshua does not, when I'm speaking of, you know, black people from the States, that is why. There's a certain level of identification when many of us from the States look at Wilder. We're like, I know what made him. I understand his experience. I've lived it. So listen, bottom line, I am 100% aware of the landscape. I'm 100% aware of what's going on. I'm definitely plugged into that. But I walk my life a bit differently, which is why many of you, you know, speaking to Many of you who've called me racist or called me a coon for not appreciating your fighter to the level that you will want your fighter to be appreciated. Why I'm able to support a Chinese fighter, support a Mexican fighter, which is why I'm able to support a black fighter, support a white fighter. I'm able to do that because I just walk differently. I live my life differently. I'm definitely a humanitarian for the betterment of the human race, definitely. But on top of that, I am a very proud, secure, and confident black man. And giving a white man credit for a victory, or giving a Chinese man or Mexican man or white woman or Asian woman or who have you credit for their victory does not demoralize me or negatively impact me or define me as a black man. I'm 100% secure in who I am. I know exactly who I am. And I'm very confident in who I am and very proud of who I am. This video, honestly, isn't really for me. It's for you. What I want to see of you, my people. I want you to be more secure, more proud, more confident in who you are. Because in doing so, you yourself, your instincts wouldn't be to jump on the side of racism. Racism is for assholes, and racism is for the weak. What I need of you is to be a bit stronger yourself. Goat Cup! A little side note, just a funny story. You know when I say black, 2 sugars? There was a guy in the comments once that said, yeah, you drink your coffee black, but you had to add the 2 sugars. So look, in conclusion, I want to say this. Moving forward, what you're going to get from me and this community is someone who's going to talk about the sport of boxing, man. I'm going to discuss a jab, not a black jab, not a white jab, not a Mexican jab, not a UK jab, not a jab. A right hand, a side step, a counter punch, hard punchers, great chins, courage, all the stuff that makes us in here. I'm going to talk about those things because, dude, oh my God, I love the sport. I love boxing so much, man. I love boxing so much. And I like that. I like one human being against the next. Just everything they've learned, everything they're made of, they're just letting it go in the ring and trying to be something great. And I'm trying to preserve that part. I'm trying to preserve that part. People just trying to be great. ShowBizz Adult, I'm out.